Howdy, Internet students. This is Mr. Hermanson here again. We're going to do some practice on Objective 6.1F, solving equations. So we're going to use the balancing method here pretty much. The first equation, we have to figure out what number times 0.35 equals 0.63. Since we're using the balancing method, I'll put a line right there. Now, if you don't like decimals, there's an easy way to get rid of them. You can just multiply by some power of 10 that will move the decimal as many places as you need to. In this case, if I multiply by 100, both sides by 100, I'll get 35x equals 63. And then now, remember that in the end, our goal is to get x all by itself, or 1x. The way I can get 1 from this is I can divide it by 35. 35 divided by 35 is 1x, which I can just write as x. And then whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So I'm going to do 63 divided by 35. And my calculator tells me that that's equal to 1.8. Now remember, you should always check your work. So the way you would check this work is you would take 0.35 times 1.8 and just make sure that is equal to 0.63. All right. The second one, we need to do more than one step to solve for x. You'll notice that we have not only the 12 in front of the x, but also a minus 68 there. Now, you want to save the x for last. Remember, in the end, we want to know what x is equal to. So we want to get that to be 1x instead of 12x. But before I start with the 12x part, I'm going to get rid of this minus 68. So I can make the expression on this side of the equation a little bit simpler. Now, whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So when I add it to this side, I get 12x because basically the negative 68 and the 68 turn into 0. So they cancel each other. And 106 plus 68 is 174. And then just like in the last problem, to get 1x, I want to divide by the coefficient of x, which is 12. And whatever I do to one side, I'll do to the other. 12 divided by 12 is 1x. And 174 divided by 12 is 14.5. Again, you should check that. The way you would check this one is you would take 12 times your answer, 14.5, subtract 68, and make sure that that equals 106. I'm not sure that it does, but I think you'll find that checks out. Okay, the third equation we have here, you'll notice on the left side of the equation there's 3 terms. When you have a linear expression, you should have at most 2 terms if it's completely simplified. And the like terms that I have here are the 12x and the 8x. And I can combine those into one term. So right away I can make this simpler. 12 plus 8 is 20. So this equation becomes 12 plus 20x equals 122. Now I'm going to do like I did on the last one. I'm going to work my way to get x all by itself. First thing I'm going to do is get rid of the 12. By subtracting, 12 minus 12 is 0. So now on this side of the equation, the only thing I have left is the 20x. 122 minus 12 is 110. And like in the last equation, in order to get 1x, I want to divide by the coefficient of x, which is 20. So now I have 1x on the left side, and 110 divided by 20 is 5.5. It's time to check your answer now. Make sure you use the original expression to check your answer. So I want to do 12 plus 12 times 5.5 plus 8 times 5.5. And just make sure that that is indeed equal to 122. All right, the last equation here, it has some fractions in it, which one thing we can do is use the properties of balancing to get rid of those fractions. And the way you do that is you think of a number. Remember that this 5 here and this 3 are really division. So if you can think of a number that you multiply by that is divisible by both those numbers, and just multiply everything by that number, then you'll eliminate the fractions. And the number I'm going to use is 15. Now remember, you're multiplying everything by that number. You're distributing the 15. So I'm going to take 15 times 4/5, and that's equal to 12x. And I'm also going to do 15 times -8, which is -120. And I'm going to do 15 times -1, which is -15. And 15 times 1/3, which is 5x. And now I have an equation with no fractions in it, which is awesome. Okay? But I do have x's on both sides of the equation, so I'm going to have to eliminate the x's from one side. I'm going to choose to get rid of this 5x over here by subtracting 5x. 5x minus 5x is 0. Whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. That gives me a new equation, 7x minus 120 equals -15. And now it's looking a lot like the last equation I solved. Remember, in the end, I want x equals all by itself. I'm going to get rid of this minus 120 by adding 120 to both sides. That gives me 7x equals 105. And then I'm going to divide by 7 to get that 1x. And 105 divided by 7 is 15. Now you would have to check your answer. To check it, you would take 4/5 times 15 minus 8. Simplify that expression. Make sure it's equal to -1 plus 1/3 times 15. And I think you'll find that it does work out. All right. That's the end of this lesson. Good luck with your practice.